Hey guys, I hope all is well. I have another Path of Exile 2 probably off meta build here for you today because everyone and their mom is using a lightning spear, but I had such an amazing time with this build, not caring about the meta because it was just so much fun and I would highly recommend it to anyone to try and play for themselves. I did league start this build and it's totally and very easily league start viable with little to no gear, and every upgrade will just make this build do much more damage. And despite all the negativity that GGG faced with this patch and this season, this build still was able to shine and take me through the whole entire game pretty easily, pretty smoothly, pretty comfortably with barely any issues whatsoever. I'm still working on the build and making improvements so that I can face the higher difficulty bosses, but for now, I definitely don't have optimized gear and I've literally only been upgrading my weapon and that's it. So this is Whirling Slash into Twister Amazonis Huntress. And as you saw, it can absolutely melt boss HP bars and it's super safe because it has such reliable freeze buildups and shocking capabilities, not to mention built-in blind and free crit. Please comment and let me know if you have any advice to give with improvements on the build. So far, I'm mostly working on upgrading my weapon every 100 DPS, which I'm using a spear with about 600 total DPS, and the next upgrade at 700 is about like 20 something divine, so I'm not quite there yet, but I'm slowly making my way there. Other than that, if you like what you see, please like the video and subscribe for more content. So the way the build works can get a very tad bit complicated, but all in all, it's really not that bad. Basically, I'll start by casting Barrage, which will give me extra projectiles, then I'll Whirling Slash 3 times over the trail of ice that my companion leaves behind to make it do cold damage. Then I'll cast Twister to release ice tornadoes. And thanks to my Ascendancy, whenever I consume frenzy charges, it infuses my tornadoes with lightning damage, which now I have shock and cold dual action, so bosses are getting frozen, getting shocked, and getting annihilated. And then of course Barrage has a chance to double the amount of tornadoes that spawn, so I think I can get at least like 16 to 20 and upwards of the amount of tornadoes or something like that. I honestly don't even know how many. I just lose count because my screen is just filled with tornadoes all the time, and it's insane because if the boss arena is small enough, just casting it once will just delete the boss, which is quite lovely honestly. And then I have Sniper's Mark, which I cast on rares and bosses to boost my damage and grant me more frenzy charges. And that's basically it. I have two companions. One gives me Trail of Ice for free ice tornadoes, and the other gives me a haste aura, which is nice for quality of life. Alright, so while leveling for your gem links for Whirling Slash, you're going to want Martial Tempo and probably Magnified Effect. And then for Twister, you're going to want Acceleration and Persistence. This is before you find any additional Jewel Socket stuff. Once you can get a fourth link, I would add Rage to Whirling Slash just so you can do more damage and have more attack speed. And then for Twister, I would add Salvo, very important. This gives you pretty much, as you can see, my counter is 3 Twisters, but once I cast, it'll release those Twisters and it'll build up more stacks. And currently the only thing I have 6 linked right now, and this is only because I corrupted it with a Val Orb, is Twister. And for the 6 linked, I just added Execute, but for a very long time, I was just running Acceleration, Persistence, Salvo, and then I had Retreat, which is just for extra damage. And for Whirling Slash, I added Inspiration to reduce the mana cost of it so that I can cast it way more often. And then other than that, my main other things that I have is Barrage, which I've had premeditation, so whenever I cast Twister after casting Barrage, the Twister does 15% more damage, which is huge. And then I have Twofold, so I get the benefits of consuming the frenzy charges, which is more tornadoes, and there's a 20% chance every 1 in 5 times I'll spawn double the amount of tornadoes. And then perpetual charge, so 35% of the time I will cast Barrage, but it won't consume any frenzy charges, but it will give me all the effects, which is amazing because then I can just cast Barrage again for the same exact effect, which is amazing. And then I have Arcane Temple, so I can cast Barrage more quickly so that there's barely any downtime between casting it and having the effect go off. And then I have Sniper's Mark with Profusion, so 50% chance to gain an additional charge when the effect of Sniper's Mark goes off. And then I have Single Out, so this breaks enemy armor, which does more damage. And then Ingenuity, which also gives Sniper's Mark a better cooldown efficiency. And then another thing to help me generate frenzy charges, I have Combat Frenzy. I get a frenzy charge every time I freeze, electrocute, or pin an enemy. So the most important factor here is freeze because of my Porcupine's Trail of Ice that I'll leave behind. It's very easy for me to freeze enemies with my Tornado. And then another thing with this whole frenzy charge thing is I have this node over here. So 5% chance that if you would gain frenzy charges, you instead gain up to your maximum number of frenzy charges. So that's a total of 7 that I have for my whole tree right there. 1 here, +2 here, that's 3, and then +1 here, that's extra 4, plus the 3 natural, that's 7. So it's a lot of tornadoes going off all at once, and it's really good. And then linked here, I just have precision, so I get more accuracy, which thanks to my Ascendancy, it pretty much equals more crit chance. And then I have Wind Dancer just to give me some more evasion, links to maim. So when Wind Dancer effect the Gale Force pops off, it can maim enemies, which is not too bad. And on my Porcupine, which is the one that has Trail of Ice. So this one's actually very good. I found a really, really lucky variety here because it also periodically gives me invulnerability aura. So if I just stand next to it, it'll just release an aura and then I'm immune to all damage for like 4 seconds, which is insane. So I got very lucky there. Plus it has Shroud Walker, so I don't have to wait for it to lag behind me. It'll actually jump ahead of me to a pack of enemies and the Trail of Ice will already be there. So that's just like an insanely good quality of life, which is amazing. So for here, I have Last Gasp and then Elemental Army and Meat Shield just so it can survive as long as possible. And then I have my other Antlion Charger, the one that just rolls around. So this is actually also really nice too because it'll get to the enemy before me and the haste aura will already be there. So that's really nice. And then for this, I just have Loyalty, so it'll take damage before I do. Then I have Calling Strike just for fun. It'll occasionally call enemies and then Minion Mastery just to give it some more HP. As my Ascendancy, I also have Elemental Infusion, so I actually don't know if this actually does anything, but it seems to be doing something. So I put Lightning Exposure, Lightning Penetration, Lightning Mastery, and Cold Mastery because it does have all the tags on it. And then I also, while I was using Parry, I just had Unbreakable and Overpower with it. And that's about it for gem links. And then moving on to gear, the most important thing would be the weapon. So this is a 400 DPS spear, and then eventually I bought a 500 DPS spear, and now currently I'm using a 600 DPS spear. So I've been incrementally going up 100 DPS every time I get the chance to actually upgrade it. This spear cost me like a few divine. This one was like a few X. This was like maybe 1 divine maybe back when I was initially upgrading it. Other than that, there's nothing crazy on my gear. I just have like just some life and res here and there. And my chest has spirit, which is important. And then I definitely have spirit on my amulet, which is also important. It's also really important to get stats because a lot of the gems and jewel sockets will need a mixture of int and strength. So you need to have some variety here and there. This one, my rings, I actually found as a magic variety and I regaled it and then I just slammed X and then I just ended up with these. So not too bad. For my gloves, I originally was using this, which had a ton of life and damage and res on it. But then I killed Zesht and I dropped a Hand of Wisdom in action. So it's actually really good for DPS. And then I valed it for an extra jewel socket. So now every time I hit, all in all, I gain 5 rage per enemy hit, which is kind of nice. And then for my shield, my buckler, it's just got a ton of life and res on it. And then the block chance is also very important. And then for my belt, it's just life and res. So honestly, the rest of the gear, especially the rings, is not optimized at all. And then boots is like, 30% movement speed is very nice. And then just some res and life, it's nothing crazy. I do have 3 charm sockets thanks to my belt. So I have stun immunity, freeze immunity, and shock immunity, which is very nice for survivability. And that's pretty much it. The gear is nothing crazy at all. Lastly, for my passive tree, so I started off here with attack damage, went down to primal instinct. I got both stalk and leap and eagle eye. Eventually I came and got this block chance, but I actually didn't get this frenzy charge stuff until later. I held off on this and this actually all together. I just came straight down here, honestly, and just went straight for the spear nodes as fast as possible because they do give a lot of crit and melee damage and projectile damage. It's actually really nice. And then there's a lot of general attack damage to be gained here. Then I went up here for this extra crit chance and crit damage eventually, and then I got this node, which is huge, Trusted Kinship. It lets me have 2 companions, but not drastically, but it does take away some evasion. It's not too bad, honestly, but it does let me have a second companion, which is really nice. And then you have reduced reservation of the companions too, so it's easier for you to have 2 at the same time while also having Combat Frenzy and Gale Force as well. And then other than that, it's just like some block chance. I have capped block chance at 75% just from these 2 block clusters here, which is really efficient. And actually this one too, it's not too much investment. And then general attack damage, some LE damage, and LE pen, which is actually very important. This one gives me 12% penetration. And then I have Calling Strike on my marks. So wherever I snipers mark something, I have Calling Strike on it. And then I just topped off everything with just the extra frenzy charges, which is really nice. And then for my Ascendancies, I started off with Predatory Instinct, which is huge for just killing bosses and rares in general. So this will actually take you a long way and really did help me get my other Ascendancy points. And then secondly, I got Critical Strike, which is amazing because it's free crit chance on just gaining accuracy nodes, so you don't have to invest in crit by itself and accuracy by itself. You can do both at the same time, which is very important for attack builds. And then my third ascendancy, I actually got Mystic Harvest just so I have more survivability. And then for my final ascendancy, I got Elemental Infusion. Actually, I honestly don't even remember which I got. It didn't really matter too much, the order, but this definitely carried me throughout the entire game. I think I got this one last actually, but I don't even remember anymore. So that's the build so far. Like I said, there's still much room for improvement, and this is just my progress so far. I definitely want to see how far I can take it and try to do all the bosses in their highest difficulties. But for now, here's the Arbiter fight. I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you guys next time.